Good sunny afternoon to so many folks. I hope that it's a great fall day for you as we quickly start to approach that holiday season. Well, maybe you're thinking about getting things cleaned up in time for guests to come over, or maybe just before you get your Christmas decorating going. Well, you can certainly use the services over at the Coral Laundromat. They're located at 3620 Veterans Boulevard, and we thank them greatly for being our studio sponsor. Ag gets dirty. Coral Laundromat can help you keep it clean. Well, weather outside is not frightful yet at this point, although we are hearing tell of some changes that might be coming right after Thanksgiving. Hasn't quite been pinned down yet, but there is the chance of quite a snow system moving in, and probably more so than anything, that real dip in cold temperatures is coming at us. Current forecast today, we're going to be in about the mid 40s. Chance of rain tomorrow, up to 40%. We'll see what that does. But the rest of the week and even into next week, Monday, still looking like we're seeing highs in the mid 40s and overnight lows in the 30s. So a little bit breezy this afternoon, but I think from what I have been seeing from many people who are sending me their messages, they're pointing out the fact that, we're getting some fall work done right now, whether it's finishing corn combining, we're doing some tillage, might even just be getting some work done in the shop and so much more. So plenty to always see and do in the farming world. And our weather report for today brought to you by Progressive Ag Risk Management Specialists. They too want to make sure that you get a chance to get as much done for your fall weather as you can, and we thank them for their help. Questions today, you can reach us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. My inbox is powered by Superior Grain Equipment, Superior Grain Storage, Drying, and Handling Solutions. You can find out more, superiourbins.com. But if you just want to send me an email, ag@flagfamily.com. Very happy to help answer those questions you might have. And if you're watching, you'll see us on Facebook, YouTube, and Acres TV at WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus. Someone took advantage of the JLA Insurance phone line today, and that would be Stu Letcher. He is with the North Dakota Grain Dealers Association. And Stu, there's a lot of things that are going on in your world with the association. But first of all, even in our top of the hour news, we heard some discussion about a fire at a local elevator. Some folks have sent me messages asking, are we seeing a real uptick in elevator fires or dryer fires this fall? And is it something to be concerned about? And what are you hearing from your members with the Grain Dealers Association?
Well, thanks, Bridgette. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. It's kind of funny. It seems like there's a lot happening right now, but I wouldn't say it's probably anything that's necessarily out of the ordinary. It just so happens that we had two elevator fires that were probably within 15 miles of each other with a week apart. And that's a little unusual, but I don't think it's anything that anybody needs to read anything into. There's many reasons why something like one of these incidents could happen. And, we in the industry are constantly, trying to do what we can to make sure these things don't happen. So I would say it's nothing to be concerned about.
I would agree. And like you mentioned, there are probably some reasons that folks don't realize as to why fires like this can happen. One, grain dust. Two, wood cribbed elevators. Those are just a couple of them. Are there other reasons or possibilities what we could do to prevent some of those fires and things that are currently being used, tactics that are employed at other elevators and food processing places?
Yeah, actually, the grain industry has its own OSHA standard. As a matter of fact, it's called the Grain Handling Standard, and it outlines many of the things that we in the industry need to address to prevent things like this from happening. And even sometimes with the best maintenance and prevention programs, these things can still sometimes happen. I know there have been a couple. I think there was an elevator fire this summer that was caused by lightning. But yes, dust control is a big piece. This time of year, our facilities are being run probably more hours than usual, being at harvest, especially with, good weather, trying to get the crop off. We're running more hours. There are times when sometimes machinery failures can take place. We can get hot bearings There can be some sort of mechanical issue that creates, friction. The belt in the leg is basically a vertical conveyor belt, and if that tracks off, we can have some, friction issues. And it's probably not much different than when you talk about combine fires. It's the same material, it's just in the field. And if you can have a mechanical failure that can create a combine fire, the same thing can happen in a grain.
That's a really good point. Failures happen, accidents happen, lightning strikes happen. None of those are things that anyone is intending to see going on. And folks who own those facilities, whether it was in Hatton, Mayville, or any of our elevators across the state of North Dakota, folks are doing everything they can on a daily basis to prevent that from happening. But yet there can be accidents. And I really appreciate you said about there being their own OSHA standards. I mean, there's a high regard for safety in the grain handling industry.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, this is probably a bit of a segue for me, but we as an association sponsor a safety and health program where we have two individuals that's their full-time job is we go around and, throughout the industry and help facilities with, some of these compliance and safety programs. We do inspections, help them out with, we need to have written programs for housekeeping, keeping the dust levels down, for preventive maintenance, making sure the machinery is in place. So we as the association have been involved with that part of our industry for probably close to 30 years now.
One of the questions that I received in the wake of those two fires happening, and we did have some grain dryer fires both on farm and at commercial facilities as well. One of the questions came in as, why can't those wood cribbed elevators be insured? And you and I have talked about this before, but I think it's time to revisit that. What's the real answer to it, Stu?
There isn't an easy answer, but and it's not to say they can't be insured. We can get insurance, but generally nowadays, if you're going to insure a wood crib elevator, you're going to pay a pretty high premium, and it's going to be one of those type of policies that's maybe not considered in market. So you're going to go to like a Lloyd's of London, and if you're going to get a policy, and essentially it's because wood crib facilities, a lot of them were built, 50 to 100 years ago, and it was, the material that we're using is wood, and so it's flammable. We have a higher concentration of those type of facilities up here, North Dakota, Minnesota, somewhat in South Dakota. We have a higher number of wood crib elevators than a lot of other areas of the country, and I'm not so sure that a lot of the insurers really understand the facilities. Now, are they will burn, but are they any more prone to issues than any other type of facility? If they're maintained and they're kept clean, I would say no. If you have a concrete facility, those and one of the reasons we ended up with the grain handling standard is because of explosions. And if you have a concrete facility, you can have an explosion as well. Mm-hmm. So it's an issue that we're working on. I think it's probably more of a misunderstanding in the industry than anything. I think that hopefully down the road we will have some sort of solution worked out where we can at least help these guys, at least if they do cleanup. If you have a situation where you have a fire, there's going to be some money involved in cleanup. We're working on that. We don't have a solution yet, but hopefully, in the next year or so here, we'll have something.
That is excellent to know. And, one thing that I think is the right timing for us too is to say a big thank you to the volunteer fire departments that stepped up in these situations, because those local volunteers probably work at the elevators, are farmers, are people in the community, and they responded in force to keep homes and other businesses in those areas safe. So a big salute and thank you to our rural fire departments across the area for being a part of that. And then lastly, Stu, you have a potential merger coming up with a couple of organizations. Would you talk about that?
Absolutely. So the North Dakota Agricultural Association and the North Dakota Grain Dealers Association are planning a merger. And we're essentially the two organizations that represent commercial agribusiness in the state, the grain dealers, the commercial grain facilities. And the Ag Association represents the commercial ag retail. So we're talking fertilizer, chemical, seed, equipment. And we have some overlap in our membership. And it just makes sense at this point to bring the two organizations together. We've collaborated on a lot of things over the years. And maybe it's time where we, just bring them together and, gain some efficiency. So
I think that is a great explanation, efficiency. And if I'm not mistaken, the North Dakota Ag Association will be voting on their directive for that in December. Grain dealers will be voting in January, and so there'll be more news to come after the first of the year, correct?
that's correct. Yep. Each annual meeting, like you said, the Ag Association is in December, grain dealers in January, and provided those two votes are approved, we may have a new name sometime, hopefully January, February of next year with the new organization.
Well, for the time being, if folks have questions and want to ask you about maybe it's some of the safety standards and things that you do with North Dakota Grain Dealers Association, how could they reach you, Stu?
They can certainly go to ndgda.org, our website, and there's contact information there, or we're certainly happy to have them call the office here at 701-235-4184.
I really appreciate you taking some time to answer those questions. I know we've done it before, but sometimes we just need to verify and reiterate. How's that?
Absolutely. Happy to do it, and anytime.
All right, excellent. Well, we will talk very soon, Stu, and folks listening, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our next guest. That's Suttyn Dodge. She is Miss U.S. Agriculture. She's from here in North Dakota. We'll get an opportunity to visit with her, and we will make sure to pick up the headlines after we hear from the American Ag Network and our livestock market update. Thank you for listening, for being here. Maybe you're watching on our live stream. Again, Facebook, YouTube, Acres TV. We're glad to have you. And for questions you may have, you can certainly reach out by calling the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. I'm trying to keep an eye on my inbox, so you can always send messages to ag@flagfamily.com. And the inbox here is powered by Superior Grain Equipment. Our guest today, joining us from Western North Dakota, is, hope I said this right, Suttyn Dodge. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
Suttyn, how are you today?
I'm so good. How are you?
Great. So tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, and what you've grown up doing.
So, I'm from Bowman, North Dakota, and I've grown up on my ranch my entire life. My family runs the Lazy JS Ranch, and we raise LJSR quarter horses, and then we also have pulled Herefords. So, when you ranch every single day for your entire life, you grow a connection with it and you just wish many people who don't understand agriculture would be able to learn more about it.
So you channeled that into a couple of things, and one of them is the Miss US Agriculture Program, pageant, if you will. So tell us more about that. How did you learn about it or get started wanting to do something like this?
So I'm pretty sure it was my eighth grade year. Macy Weary came to talk to our school about agricultural safety for National Ag Week. And when she was speaking, I looked over at my friend and I was like, I'm going to be her someday. That was all a joke, supposed to be. And we were walking back to our lockers after she spoke. And I was like, hey, do you want to do my hair and makeup for like the pageant or whatever? And she's like, yeah, I would love to. So then, actually, when I went home, I started doing a lot of research. And I didn't tell my parents that I was actually thinking about it for like 3 to 4 days. And after I gathered a lot of information, I told them, I was like, guys, like I really want to run for this. I really want to be an advocate for agriculture. I think agriculture is something a lot of people overlook. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. So I put in my application and I got accepted as the 2024 North Dakota Teen Miss United States Agriculture. So I immediately contacted Macy and I was like, "Hey, like you're the reason I'm doing this or whatever." And she was like, "Okay, well, actually, I can't help you if you're part of my organization." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean your
What?
organization?" And she's like, "Well, there's two organizations. There's Miss United States Agriculture and there's Miss Agriculture USA." And she's like, I'm
Hmm.
Miss Agriculture USA. So if you're part of that, you like, I can't help you. And I was like, oh, well,
Hmm.
I'm not sure which one. So I went and looked and it's the, and it's the Miss United States Agriculture. And she was like, okay. So she helped me along the way. Um, Speaking at public events or whatever, she was my motivation. Her message was about um, the safety behind agriculture. And my main goal was to teach people that your food doesn't come from shelves on the grocery or on the like grocery store shelves. Um, there's so many people who work day in and day out to provide for the country, provide for people outside of the country. And as a farmer and rancher, you don't get any days off. Like if you're sick, you still have to wake up and go feed your cows. If you it's a holiday, well, Christmas can't happen. You can't open your presents until chores are done. Thanksgiving, you can't have your big giant Thanksgiving dinner until your chores are done. Um, you come home from school, you can't sit on video games all night. You have to move cows, you have to hay, you have to fence, you have to go chop ice. It's constant work, and people who get to go home every single day after school and they don't have to go outside in negative-degree weather, they're really lucky. And I feel those are the people who overlook the farmers and ranchers who actually put in the effort.
Well, I think you have a pretty solid background, not only from how you grew up, but also the activities that you continue to do today in order to really supplement that learning and knowledge base that you have for agriculture. And we just had a picture up of you where you were in your FFA jacket holding what looks like a baby bison, probably a state winning contest there. What contest
Yes.
was it?
So that was the state FFA contest. Our team won, and we went to nationals actually 2 weeks ago. And then I was the state champion, and I tied with one of my best friends, Layla, from a different chapter,
So, which contest was it?
the livestock judging contest.
Nice. National Livestock Judging. That's outstanding. We have a lot more questions for you, Sutton, and we're going to want to continue those after our bottom of the hour news. Again, for those who are listening, if you would like to ask questions, you can reach us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. Hold on. We'll continue visiting with Miss United States Agriculture, Suttyn Dodge of Bowman, North Dakota. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. We have the good fortune to be visiting with Miss United States Agriculture, Suttyn Dodge. She's in Bowman, North Dakota, and lots of questions about your background and so forth. Because Sutton, are you a college student? You're still in high school, able to carry on your role as Miss United States Agriculture? How does that work?
So I'm actually still a junior in high school. And so when you apply for this role, you are able to make your reign of it as you wish. So, however many banquets you want to go to, however many shows you want to go to, you're able to do whatever you want, however you want. There's not a specific number of things you have to do or anything like that.
Now, when you mentioned that one of your motivators for taking on this role was working with Macy Weary from Hebron, who has had something similar, um, what's your platform? Macy's really had to do with farm safety, particularly after there was a death in her family due to a farm accident. But tell us what you focus on. As again, you mentioned where food comes from, but what are some of the specific examples of what you share?
So, some specific examples that I share is that there is kids who truly believe that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. Uh, to surprise, that's not true. And to hearing that come from like even kids in Bowman, where most of us are ranchers, farmers, is super like sad. And I feel that we need to better teach our younger generations for what actually happens in the agricultural industry. And that's not just going with like cows or pigs. Like pigs turn into bacon, they turn into ham. Um, it's also like with the crops and everybody else who goes into it, like the people who work at your grain bins, the people who work at your meat packing plants, the people who work at your butcher shops. Like those people also have a big role in agriculture, and most people don't give the credit where credit is due. Um, yes, farmers and ranchers are the ones who are providing everything, but also the people who are going above and beyond to serve you your food and make sure that everybody is well fed.
Absolutely true. And so, Sutton, that would tell us a little bit about the contest. In order, you put in an application for it, but was there also, when we think about pageants, if you will, often there are different speaking opportunities and different categories, etc. Does it work like that in this particular pageant as well, or what does that look like for others who might be curious?
So, in order to gain your state title, yes, you have to fill out an application. You have a paper you have to write. You have to send in pictures of yourself. And then once you're granted your title for the Miss United States Agriculture, their nationals is held in Alabama. And so when you go to Alabama, the pageant is broken into 2 days. Your first 2 days are your onstage introduction and your one-on-one interviews. So your one-on-one interviews, when you go in, you are in front of three judges, and each judge gets to ask you a question, and it's on spot answering. Um, I won in that category because when you are confident in your ability to speak, you're confident in your ability of knowledge, and you just tell the judges everything, you're gonna have a fair shot. Then you go to the onstage introduction, and that is where you have a minute and a half memorized speech, just telling a little bit
Hmm.
about yourself, where you're from, why you want this title, the people that you've worked with, and everything. And then the second day, they make it fun. You have your state fun fashion, and that is where you dress up as something agriculturally related to your state. So I dressed up as a wheat plant, so I wore a gold dress, and then we had fake wheat coming out of everywhere. Super itchy, but it was really fun. And then we did our formal wear. So with your formal wear,
Hmm.
you have to write again a paper explaining basically like your onstage introduction, but it's longer and more formal. Um, and then you just wear your fancy gown and you just walk the stage how you wish. And then at the end of that is the actual crowning ceremony.
So, with all the things that you've learned, what types of groups are you speaking to? You mentioned early on students, so probably elementary schools, but are you also spending time with other organizations, adults as well, and sharing your message?
So actually my reign ended last year at nationals, but when I did speak, yes, I did speak to the younger generation elementary. I also spoke at our North Dakota or our Bowman County farm and ranch banquet, and that
Hmm.
was really fun. That was exciting. Getting to just tell the adults and everything from a younger perspective, that yes, the people who do understand agriculture, we do see how hard they're working. We do understand the long days that they put in. We do understand that it's not easy. It's a tough job, and we really appreciate what they're doing for everyone. And then when you go to speak to the younger generation, um, you really have to get into their heads that chocolate milk doesn't come from brown cows.
And has all of the speaking been positive? Have you found some challenges sometimes in helping folks understand the story of where their food comes from?
So, yes, the challenges are that people, especially adults, when they come up with a point of view, we don't usually like to change that point of view. And for the people who think that farmers and ranchers are bad, or that they're harming their animals, or that they're not doing enough for providing us with amazing crops or whatever, they don't see that it's not really just the farmer's fault. Like, Mother Nature does have an impact on everything. And every farmer and rancher is going to provide to their best of their ability. And trying to get that through to some adults is a challenge, because they just don't see any other way than they're hurting their animals or they're not working hard enough.
Well, one question is specifically about livestock that someone has asked me because they want to make sure that they know what's a polled Hereford. Now, most of us are familiar with Herefords. They're a white face, red hide animal, but when you put the word polled in front of it, we have a listener who's saying, "Wait, what does that part of it mean?"
So a pulled Hereford is a gene in their genetics. So they don't have horns. So you can have pulled Herefords or you can just have regular Herefords. Most of the time, your regular Herefords are going to have a horned gene. So they're going to be able to get skers. Skers are like little knobs on the top of their head that could potentially form into horns, but usually most of them stay just as skers. But it's that gene that kicks in, if you will, that makes them have horns.
Well, after all of this, your time and reign as Miss Teen United States Agriculture, what will you do after graduation? You're a junior. You've got a little time to think about it. Have there been plans?
So there has been a lot of different ways that I have thought about taking. Um, I'm not quite sure, but I'm thinking about either egg business or I really think about being an egg teacher. Then again, that's really putting my advocacy out there. That's informing the younger generation of what agriculture is really about. And my egg teacher goes in above and beyond every single day to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing, why we're doing it, the impact it's having on everybody else. And I think that's super inspiring.
Well, I think that's outstanding message and an outstanding message to share. And Sutton, thanks for spending some time with us today to talk about your reign and really to let others know that this pageant exists so they have an opportunity to advocate for agriculture.
You're, of course.
Awesome. All right, we are going to come back with some headlines. We'll touch on the weather, but before I forget, if you are getting ready to think ahead about 2026, Maybe you've got some corn left after 2025 that you're just harvesting. You need to get that dried down. Don't forget to give a call to Codeco Fuels and Propane. Get those orders in for that propane now. And then, as you're thinking ahead to next year, could you still be getting some tiling done? Well, that's a call to Ellingson Drainage Company. Both of them have been sponsors through this Here We Grow season for us as we custom farm 20 acres of wheat, and they're there to provide services for you. We'll be right back. How's that weather out there? Not too bad of a day for many. Again, we're seeing temperatures right around 45 degrees. Our overnight lows are going to stick close to 30 for about the next week. And we'll return to those mid 40s even through the weekend as we get into Monday. Might get a shot of rain tomorrow. There's about a 40% chance of that, and it's just got a little bit of a breeze attached to it. So we'll see where things go from here, but it's not bad for later November. And a big thank you to our weather sponsor. That's Progressive Ag. They are our risk management specialists. News headlines that have been hitting today. Well, there's a few things. First of all, even with the government shutdown having ended, USDA's crop progress report will not be released for the 7th week in a row. In an email that came from the National Ag Statistics Service on Monday, USDA is working on getting the report scheduled. We'll announce them when ready, but crop progress will not be released today. And the last report of the season was originally scheduled for coming up next Monday, November 24th. I don't know that that's a terrible surprise that we haven't seen that crop progress report. We did get a WASDE report, the World Ag Supply and Demand. That came out this past Friday, and that had been scheduled even though the government had not yet reopened when the announcement was made. Also, USDA has announced the second stage of disaster assistance. After weeks of anticipation, USDA announced the details of what they're calling Stage 2, a $16 billion in total supplement disaster relief fund, and those announcements were made on Monday. It's in addition to more than a $9.3 billion emergency commodity assistance program payment for a row crop farmer and $705 million in emergency livestock relief program payments for ranchers this year. So Stage 2 covers eligible crop, tree, brush, and vine losses not covered under the Stage 1 program provisions, and that includes non-indemnified or called shallow loss, uncovered and quality losses. And this is according to press releases. Livestock, timber, and crops for grazing are not eligible. The enrollment period for Stage 2 will open on Monday, November 24th, with a close date of April 30th, 2026. There's a new Waters of the U.S. proposal. The Trump administration on Monday, boy, there's a lot of announcements on Monday. Anybody else notice that? Well, that administration released a proposal to redefine the waters of the U.S. to conform with the Supreme Court's ruling recently in Sackett versus the EPA. The proposal comes after the EPA held 9 public listening sessions across the country in the past year. In the latest iteration of the rule, that has been changed by several administrators dating back to the Obama administration. The EPA said that such key terms as relatively permanent, continuous surface connection, and tributary would be better defined and outline the scope of waters of the U.S. to be consistent with the Clean Water Act. The proposal establishes jurisdictional tributaries that are required to connect to traditional navigable waters either directly or through other features that provide predictability and constant flow. This new Trump rule also preserves jurisdictional exclusions such as certain ditches, prior converted cropland, and waste treatment systems, as well as a new exclusion for groundwater. What does all that mean? You know what? Give us a few days and we're going to sort that out. It's going to be a lot easier to tell folks what does that really come down to once we've had a little bit of time to digest that. And frankly, I will be honest with you, one of the best resources for water management discussions and how things like WOTUS can affect us, particularly in the farm community, is Levi Otis over at Ellingson Company. Levi is a great resource. This is what he does consistently, is work on policy matters for farmers. And so this would be an opportunity for us to probably talk to Levi in the near future and help define what some of these things are going to look like. There has been a bird flu case in a human that was reported in Washington State. First case of bird flu since February, who was confirmed in a human. And that strain that was detected is H5N5, and it's never before been reported in humans. So the risk to the public's low. There was no evidence of person-to-person transmission. And to prevent infection, remember, you should not be having contact with sick or dead animals. So even if you need to remove animals from your backyard or your commercial flocks, you need to make sure to take proper hand washing and other hygiene matters into your own hands. Get cleaned up. The state epidemiologist for Washington said the patient had a backyard flock of domestic birds, and they will be conducting testing of the live birds in that flock for the avian influenza. And then the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife plans to increase sampling efforts in counties near the patient's residence. just through the weekend, through travels, I saw a lot of migratory waterfowl. So the increase in bird flu is not unsurprising. I think we're going to continue to see that as we see more migration happening. We are seeing, though, that wild birds really, they're driving that outbreak of bird flu, but we are seeing less contamination to domesticated flocks. Certainly, we have great biosecurity measures that have been put into place to prevent that. And really, a new study is looking at how these viruses amongst the birds are introduced and spread. There is a team from a veterinarian school of medicine. They are with, she doesn't say which school she's with in this press release, but they found that wild birds are really the critical driver, and the findings will be published in the magazine Nature. And looking at how this evolutionary shift has occurred, going from H5N1 to H5N5 is changing. We saw this change happen in Europe. Europe had almost the exact same trajectory happening in 2022, but they saw it just a little bit earlier than we did. So we'll likely see these things happening fairly quickly. Also, there's a robot harvester been found to be able to pick strawberries 2 to 3 times faster than humans. The product from Daily Robotics is gearing up for a commercial launch next April in California. It's a robotic harvester that not only can pick much faster, but also looks to have less potential for damage to the berries. So that will increase yield. It will pack them directly into the clamshells, fitting them very smoothly into existing farm workflows. There's a reminder that you got to remember to wash those berries, because if they're not being washed prior to being packed, because that does prevent them from breaking down and arriving in your store in good quality, you've got to wash them when they get home. And strawberries are often hidden underneath leaves on a plant. Well, the dynamic perception system of this robot harvester means that it's able to search for berries, because there is an arm that can go underneath the canopy with a camera on it to see more fruit, so you have less yield loss because it's doing a better job of picking those berries. So those are just a few of the headlines that are going on today. We'll touch on a lot more of them tomorrow, talk those through, and then also we'll have a visit from Don Kinsler from NDSU. He's our horticulturalist with the most knowledge of anyone I can find to talk about plants in the manner that Don does. So we'll have his years of experience on display tomorrow. Right now, you can stay tuned for Jay Thomas.